Alright, CNT125, Voice over IP Lab. The last podcast we did the initial config on the router. That was the sub-interfaces and that was the DHCP scopes. We're now going to move into the beginning of our telephony config. Now here I do a quick reminder of kind of the pieces we're going to need to do. We will need to do some general telephony config. That's kind of like the overall, how many phones, where am I going to have the configuration, what's the general phone number. We'll then need to configure the ePhone DNs. These are directory numbers. These would be the people, Doug Brown, Bill Smith, Sally Jones. We'll then need to configure the actual ePhone, the physical phone. This is the actual phone sitting on the desk, so we'll be looking at the MAC address for that critter. And then the last thing we need to do is we need to connect the person and the phone. So Doug Brown to a specific phone or Sally Smith to a certain phone. And we're going to use the button command to do that. All right. So we'll now need to get two phones. So get two IP phones, and you'll need two power bricks. Now it is possible sometimes when we have a large class, we might need to share these around. So if your lab partner's almost done, you might be able to just use theirs when they're done. Again, do not plug them in yet to the network. Do not plug them into the network yet. You're just going to get the phone. We need information off the phone. Take that phone, flip it around. On the back of the phone is the MAC address. So we're going to create ePhone DN1 with phone number 7001, and we're going to allocate Frodo Baggins to that. And we're also going to have ePhone 1 allocated to Frodo, and we need the MAC address off the phone. So if you spin the phone around, on the back, there's usually like 3 tags. One is kind of like a model number, one is kind of like a serial number. But the main one we're looking for is the MAC address. We're actually going to look for the MAC address. You'll need to copy that down super carefully. Remember, MAC addresses are written hexadecimal, 0 through 9, A through F. There's no O's in there. It's a 0, okay? 0 through 9, A through F. Write down the MAC address exactly as you see it on the tag. And write it in a format of 4 digits, period, 4 digits, period, 4 digits. So on mine, as I flip it around, let me actually put my my MAC address in here. I wrote down off of mine, the MAC address on my first phone is, and this is just my sample, 0014.f2.8d.cc55. Now you'll notice uppercase, lowercase, that does not matter. But I need to have this exactly right. If I'm 1 digit off, it won't recognize the phone. It won't register the phone. So I have to get this spot on. It might be wise to write it down and maybe have your lab partner double check you. Make sure you have it, right and written down correctly. My second MAC address off my other phone, 001F.9E25.1C56. Okay? And I also want to look at the front of the phone. You should see a model number somewhere. These happen to be 7940s for the 2 phones I picked up. So just look at the model number on the front. It should be on there somewhere for you. That is information I need to finish my phone config. So I'm going to keep that handy. All right, now that I did my information gathering, now I can go back to my router and start my initial telephony config. All right, first thing we're going to do, I'm going to slide that off to the side over there. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set the clock on my phone. So I'm going to do clock set, and this will be helpful anytime we're dealing with phone calls and eventually maybe voicemail. We need to make sure dates and things are correct. So we need to set the time. So I'm looking at, it's 1:50, so this is actually 13:50:00. Okay, we need it in 24-hour time. We need the day. Right now it's 11th of March, 2022. So there's my setting my clock. It even recognized that, Friday, March 11th, 2022. I now need the time zone. So I'm going to do clock time zone. And we're going to say Eastern, because we're in Eastern time zone. We're going to offset by 0 hours. So we're going to do exit. And I'm going to do a show clock. And it should kind of repeat back that it is Friday, March 11th at 13:50, 1:50 if you will. All right, so we have our clock set. Now let's start our initial telephony config. Config T. Oh my goodness, config T. There we go. We need telephony service. We're going to say max ePhones. These routers typically handle up to like 36. We're just going to say 12. We're only going to configure 2, but we're going to put a max in of 12. Max DN 12. And then we're going to say no auto assign. This should not auto assign any kind of DNs or anything like that for us. Okay. Oops, I still need to stay in telephony mode. Telephony service mode. There we go. Now let's plug in our address that we're going to use to get phone configurations from. So we're basically going to put in the address of our VLAN 20 sub-interface. So IP source address 172.16.128.1 in my example. And we need port 2000. Port 2000, that is the setup protocol of Skinny, SCCP. We want the dial plan. This is going to now allocate the 10-digit phone number for this place and also indicate the last 4 will be an extension. So we're going to say dial plan pattern 1 space, and then I'm going to plug my phone number in, 717-780 780 there we go. So 717 area code, 780 exchange, and then we're going to say 7 ... These will be the extensions here. So then we'll say extension length 4. So dial plane pattern 1, put in the full 10 digits, 717-780-7 ... extension length 4. Make sure all that syntax right. Make sure that syntax is right. We're now going to put a system message. That's going to be a name that's going to be displayed on our phone. Typically, this would be something like the company name. We're going to put the Shire on ours today. We're going to configure this for the Shire. And now we're going to do a command called create. Oh my goodness. Create CNF files. These are XML files that get delivered to the phone to display information. So there is our general telephony config. All right, let's move into the more specific. Let's start putting in people. So we're going to put in ePhone DN. These are directory numbers. We're going to say ePhone directory 1, and we're going to give it a number. Oops. There we go. We're going to give it a number, and we'll say 7001 for the first extension. And we're going to put a name in here of Frodo Baggins. And we'll say exit. That's my first person. The next person will be ePhone DN 2. And that's going to be number 7002. And the name on this one is going to be Samwise Gamgee. So now we have 2 people in here. We would continue this in a company for all the employees or all the people in the company. So now we have the DNs. We have the general config. Here's the overall phone number. Here are the people, and now we need the actual physical phones that will be sitting on the desk. The reason these are done separately is so we can treat them separately. You know, if Doug Brown leaves and gets, Sally Smith gets hired in place of, we can just delete Doug Brown and add Sally Smith in. We don't have to change the phones on the desk. All right, so now we need ePhone 1. We now need the MAC address. Okay, this has to be spot on, folks. Close does not work here. It has to be spot on. So I'm going to copy this off my notes. 0014 is my example. Make sure you're using the MAC address on your phone. F2 8D.CC55. And I'm going to double check this. 0014.F28D.CC55. Okay. If I have an error, I need to fix it now. These things get like splinters or thorns. They get dug in, and they're very difficult, very, very tedious to get out. We're going to say very tedious to get out. We're going to type 7940. That's the model number of our phone. And the last part, this is it's a simple command, but it's a very complex command. We now need to use the command button, B-U-T-T-O-N. And I'm going to plug in, the command is going to be 1:1, but let's describe what we're doing. If you look at the actual physical phone sitting on your desk, there's probably 2 buttons along the right side of the screen. Those are the physical buttons. That's the first number here. I can assign this phone number to either the top button, which would be 1, or the bottom button, which would be 2. So I can change that to say this phone number gets assigned to the top one or the bottom one. That's what that first number is. The colon means tie it together, and I can tie it different ways. There's different things we can use in here, but this case is basically tie it together with an ordinary phone number. And then the last number is the actual DN number. So on this phone, this ePhone 1, we are going to tie it to DN1, which is Frodo Baggins. So this MAC address we're plugging in is going to get tied to Frodo Baggins. 1:1 right here. This is the DN for Frodo Baggins. All right. So there is my first phone plugged in. I'm now going to do ePhone 2 MAC address, and I'm going to get it off my notes. 001F. Again, make sure you're using yours. 9E25.1C56. I'm going to double check it. Again, make sure you're using your MAC address that you took notes on. 001F 9325 1C56. We need the type here, 7940, and we need the button. Now this time around, 1:2. I want the top button on my phone to be associated with this phone number. That's that first one right here. I want to tie it. That's the little colon means tie it like regular phone number and everything. And 2 means tie it to DN2. So this will now be Samwise Gamgee's phone. Samwise Gamgee is going to get tied to this phone. All right, so there's the second one right here, your phone DN. I'm going to do exit. And I'm actually doing a copy, run, start right off the bat here. Copy, run, start. I'm going to save this right off the bat. Now let's take a look at a couple things. If we do a show run, I'm going to do it backwards here, but we'll do a show run. Here is my DHCP config, space. Here's my subinterface config, space. Here's my initial telephony config. Here's my DNs, and then here's my ePhones. Okay, so there's my whole config. I can do show ePhone summary, and that'll show just my ePhones. They're not registered yet. They will be soon. And I can also do a show ePhone DN summary as well. Hey, what are the people in here? And right now there's 2. I have 2 DNs. Okay? So I can do a couple looks of things. All right, when we come back in the next podcast, we'll start plugging things in and bringing things online.